Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Kevin. Let's see, am I on? Yeah.
Hey, Jeff, I've come to the realization I got to write all my stuff down. I have to write the entire process down. I went out the other night, had my new autofocuser on there, hooked it all up. Couldn't exactly figure out why I thought I still needed my Batinoff mask. Anyway, I,
Uh,
I got finished at the end of the night, came back home, read the instructions. You're supposed to turn the autofocuser on.
yeah.
I had it all hooked up. The thing was moving up, but I never turned it on. And then when I was disassembling it after trying to take about 20 frames of the Rosette Nebula, I realized I never put the HAO2 O3 filter in.
Oh,
And I'm not even sure I had the guide turned on. So I just gotta kind of jot it all down and have some notes.
well, a mission nebula, you can do them in natural color. That's not the
It,
end of the world. Nothing wrong with doing
well,
it in
it's
natural
not the end
color.
of the world. It's just that it was not my plan.
Right, right.
How you doing otherwise?
Doing good.
Good.
See, we have is that Joe Mello on there?
Looks like Joe. Yep. We appear to be recording. Yep.
Steve is here. Our speaker's here. That's good. We might have a few other folks from Novak show up as well.
Okay, good.
Steve did this talk to Novak a year ago or so, and I think a lot of us saw it. But uh, there might be a few of the newer folks that might show up that didn't get to see it. So
And
Hi,
some
Tedros.
folks
How you
who
doing?
saw it, and some folks who saw it before might show up and heckle me.
yeah, that's right. No, it's a good talk though. He motivated me to finally get like a real camera. So I'm going to get
Or
out this year and actually photograph things that are, don't require 100 hours of integration time.
Yeah, it's some of those integration times are pretty intimidating.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you pretty much have to have a fixed installation somewhere. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, down here in Charlottesville, of course, there's still an awful lot you can do with not outrageous integration times. We can still capture an awful lot of things, but if you like really faint fuzzy things or supernova remnants or, really, really faint dust, then yeah, you probably have to get out to remote sites and be prepared to put the time in.
well, the key there is patience. I mean, I live outside of Leesburg, so I'm in Northern Virginia, and our wonderful skies here. If we just had the weather that would cooperate, you could gather the integration time.
Yeah.
But waiting 6 weeks between imaging sessions is just hard.
That is the killer. That's ultimately what motivated me to put my scope remote in New Mexico was, when I first started this, 5 odd years ago, here in Charlottesville area, it's like, it felt like I got a lot more integration time than I get now. The weather patterns have shifted in
Yeah.
such a way. I'm
Oh
just
yeah,
not
it's
getting
been
the time.
rough.
Yeah.
It's not consistent from year to year. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. If it was the way it was in 2020 when I first started doing this, it'd be like, yeah, I wouldn't put something remote. I can just put in the extra time and Bortle 4 works just fine. My backyard works just fine. But I don't know. I like to get data too. So, all right. Do we have a quorum? It looks like we have 10 people here so far.
Yep.
I think we have a couple I think looking at that, we have a couple of Novak folks on there. We may have more join over time. So, let's see. Yeah, we might as well go ahead and start rolling. So I'll just do a quick intro here and just administrative note. I don't have any slides to put up today because we're just going to turn this over to our speaker here in just a minute. But just heads up for everybody. What's coming up in future imaging group meetings. Today, of course, we have Steve here to talk about Astro-Landscapes. That be prepared to be motivated. If you don't have a DSLR or mirrorless camera yet, you're probably going to wind up buying one. Next month we have Marshall is going to be here. His topic, as he has titled it, is old timer astrophotography processing. But if you read the description, it doesn't sound that old timerish to me. He uses Photoshop and whatnot. So he's been doing this for a very long time. He's doing it the way he's always done it, but my guess is he's got an awful lot of useful tips and ideas to share with us and experiences that are going to be valuable, even with more modern processing tools. The month after that, in May, we're going to do an open Q&A session. Or maybe we can call it open mic or karaoke night or something like that. Meaning, if you got a short thing you want to present, feel free to do it then. Or if you have questions you want to have discussed, bring them up then or shoot them ahead, and we can be prepared with a more detailed answer if it warrants it. But nothing structured planned for that one other than to have it just be an opportunity for anyone to fire questions and try to get those answered. In June, we have Dimitro is going to talk about smart scope imaging, and we have a few other ideas for things after that. So we're quickly getting the calendar populated, and we're going to have a series of what I think are going to be a lot of interesting talks. And of course, as always, if anybody has ideas for things that they want to see, that would be far better than me shooting you what I want to see, because it's probably not going to be the same thing. So feel free to volunteer suggestions, or if you have an idea for something you think would be interesting, present, by all means, go ahead and send that my way. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop talking, and we're going to turn that over to Steve, and he's going to talk about his thing. And hopefully you have the ability to share screen, and I think Kevin is in control here, so hopefully he sent you the ability to present.
Just sent a request to share. Here we go. Maybe. Yep. Okay.
Hey, Steve, quick one for you. Do you mind if we record it? We're going to put it on our Charlottesville Astronomical Society YouTube channel.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
They're free. Okay. Can you see my beautiful "Who is this clown" slide?
We see it.
Okay. So, as mentioned before, I've given this presentation within the last year to Novak, our imagers group. At the time, I was calling this Astro-Landscapes. But since I've realized in social media, these are frequently called nightscapes. It seems to be the default term that is being used. So I've shifted the presentation to call it nightscapes. It saves 2 syllables, so that works for me. So it's what is a nightscape? What is an astro-landscape? As you'll see, it's simply combining landscape photography with astrophotography in any number of ways that apply to both landscapes and astronomy. But first, who am I? My name is Steve. I'm a VCU grad with a degree in English education. Post VCU, the intent was to get a doctorate in medieval literature from UNC. I moved down to North Carolina to establish in-state residency to save on tuition, and got a job at a camera store there in Chapel Hill on called Foister's Camera. there on Franklin Street, um, and really fell in love with photography. I had been a hobbyist. I did some sports photography at VCU, but really jumped in wholeheartedly and decided to drop reading Latin for the rest of my life in favor of photography. But this was pre-internet, so I felt that to do it justice, I needed to go back to school for it. And I did that by moving out to California and attending the Brooks Institute of Photography. This school no longer exists. I swear it's not my fault. At the time, the Brooks family who founded the school was still running it. And it was the most intensive eat, breathe, sleep photography education that you can possibly imagine. In addition to going to school at the time, I saw a notice for a photographer at the Griffith Observatory, and I got that job. So I commuted several times a week from Santa Barbara down to Los Angeles to be the staff photographer for the Griffith Observatory. Before, yes, question?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Just I
Okay.
should have my mic on. I just said, wow.
Yeah, it was a great experience. Um, I had been into astrophotography in North Carolina, but just learning my way around the sky, putting a camera on a tripod, shooting transparency film, and the whatnot. But I had studied what was possible up to that point. I had purchased a Celestron Ultima 8 Schmidt-Cat telescope on a fork mount, and had used that to put a camera and a lens on top and track, as well as a camera at the focus point of the scope, and tried that without much success. Learned a lot more at the Griffith Observatory, and actually at Brooks there was a class, one of the industrial and scientific classes, that had a component of astrophotography. Brooks had a observing site at the top of the mountain above Santa Barbara. They owned a Schmidt camera, which is like a classic uncorrect Schmidt Cassegrain without the corrected lens at the front, and instead of a secondary mirror at the spider vanes, it had a curved spherical point where you could put a piece of 35 millimeter film. And so loading it and whatnot was a hassle. But I actually, because I had more experience at that time than the instructor of the class, I taught the astrophotography course at Brooks at that time. And it was very well received. After Brooks, I came back east. I continued my astrophotography throughout the 90s. I sold astrophotography as stock photography, and this is before microstock came around. As a consequence, my photography was astrophotography was distributed through the Uniphoto Picture Agency worldwide. I made tens of thousands of dollars over the years with my astrophotography. There are books, posters, and whatnot out there. One of my images was even a cover of a Star Trek book, believe it or not. It was the novelization of the Saturday morning Star Trek cartoon, if you remember those. They did some books of them, of those shows, and into short stories. And one of the books, I think Star Trek Logs Book 6 was the book. It has one of my images as the cover. Astrophotography got me into web programming when in the late 90s, when the internet became a viable marketing channel. I started doing web programming to market my photography, and leverage that into a software engineering career at Capital One, where I worked for 23 years until I retired just in 2023. I've done just about every job in photography, photo assistant, food photography, sports photography, grip and grins, portraits, weddings, et cetera, et cetera. But around 2008, I started focusing just on landscapes, and built a business on selling landscape prints. If you guys live in Charlottesville, you may be familiar with a restaurant called Sedona Taphouse. Anybody ever eaten there?
Many times, many times.
So the art on the wall, those are my images. I specialize in Southwest landscapes, which are the decor package for Sedona Taphouse's chain of restaurants. Charlottesville, for whatever reason, is the only one left with canvas prints. I keep expecting them to contact me to buy aluminum prints, which every other location has gone to, but they haven't yet. So I'm sure that they're pretty much the worse for wear now, because canvas prints don't really work well that long in one location. But yeah, those are mine. Since 2008, it had been pretty much exclusively landscape photography, and not much thought to astrophotography, except for the occasional lunar eclipse or whatnot. But then in 2024, my wife saw a picture on Facebook of the Milky Way over a body of water, and said, "Hey, why don't you shoot me something like this?" And the light bulb went off, and I'm like, I'm retired. I have time and money. Why didn't I get back in astrophotography? So jump back in wholeheartedly. It was very much a Rip Van Winkle experience, because I hadn't done anything since like 98, I think was the last time I did anything. And of course, everything changed back then. At the end of my previous astrophotography life, auto guiders were just becoming a thing. Computers were just starting to be used. And so back then, there was no CCD camera that was really usable until Santa Barbara Instrument Groups came out with their ST4. I very much remember that. So to say that the entire scope of the industry had changed, and by 2024, is to really not put a lot of emphasis on it, but it was new, and I had a lot to learn. Anyway, I don't know if we're planning to share this presentation later, but I've got links to my websites and my AstroBin if anyone is interested.
Hey, Steve, quick question from Dave Stokes. Nikon
Uh-huh.
or Canon?
I'll get to that.
Okay,
All
good.
of the above. I have gone through over the years pretty much every camera system that you've ever heard of, and some you may not have. Currently, I'm Fuji, because when Fuji came out with their medium format, what they call medium format CMOS cameras, the GFX series. Don't tell anyone, but I was working at Capital One at the time, and watching their web presentation on the GFX 50S that they came out with, just drooling. It was everything I wanted in a camera. And bought into it wholeheartedly, tried it out, saw that it worked great, and sold all my Nikons that I had at the time. So now it's all Fuji. So neither of the options that we're given, Nikon or Canon. But I'll get back to that in a second. So what is a nightscape or a landscape astrophotograph? I mentioned before, it's a landscape image that incorporates some aspect of astrophotography, or you can consider it astrophotography that incorporates some aspect of the landscape. It can be as simple as the moon. It can be the Milky Way. It can be aurora, meteors, star trails, et cetera, et cetera. Some combination of the night sky and a landscape. It's up to you. The specifics of executing such an image can range from simple camera on tripod to trackers to our telescopes, and even creative post-processing composition and whatnot, as you'll see in a bit. You'll notice on social media that sometimes people will classify their nightscape as one or several combinations of techniques. There's untracked, which is just a camera on a tripod, tracked camera on a tracker or a telescope, uh, panorama or multi-image mosaic, which can be a single image, panorama being wider than it is tall, typically a 1:2 or a 1:3 ratio. A mosaic can be any form. It's just an image created by multiple smaller images. Um, but which means it could be any orientation you want. It could be a panorama, or it can be a more traditional 2:3, 4:5, or whatever. Stacked images, which is what we typically do at the telescope when we're using our astro cameras. Two or more images aligned in software to reduce noise and increase detail. You can do that with 35 millimeter as well. A composite, of course, is what it sounds like. It's a sky image combined with a landscape, typically taken from different locations. If the sky and the landscape are taken at the relatively the same time, same location, it's called a blend. And then star trails, just camera on a tripod, opening the shutter and letting time do its thing. I think that's pretty much the categories you'll see mentioned for any of the nightscapes, and a combination thereof. You'll see stacked composites or stacked multi mosaics or whatnot. So the techniques for astrophotography can be as simple as putting your camera on a tripod, or it can go into such complex territory that it'll drive you insane trying to get everything right. And here we've got a simple graph of from least to most complex techniques. So the simplest single image untracked can be very creative. Note that this is not my image. I'll show you an image of mine in a bit, but I saw this on the web and just was gobsmacked about it. It's an excellent example of what you could do with a single image untracked if you've got dark enough skies. And there is, we'll get into this more later, but there's a rule called Rule of 500 or the Rule of 400 for sharp stars. It tells you how long your exposure can be based on the focal length of your lens. And because you are constrained with a time limit for getting sharp stars, you kind of want to be in the darkest skies possible for these kind of images. Somewhere, Bortle 1 or 2, great. Bortle 3 with clear enough transparency would work as well. This image was made with the waxing crescent moon near to setting. So the moon was used to illuminate the mountain and done very, very well. You could also do this with the light dome of a nearby town. So mixing ambient and astro light for your image. I mentioned a Bortle scale. I assume everyone's familiar, but I threw this slide in case you weren't terribly familiar with it. Bortle 8 and 9 are inner city gray skies, all the way down to Bortle 1, which is the darkest you're going to get. Some parts of Death Valley and like. Where I live in Leesburg, we've got Bortle 6 skies, but I can drive about an hour and a half to Shenandoah National Park and have Bortle 3. And please chime in if there's any questions. This is my example of a single image untracked. I call it House Under the Stars. My family did a week vacation at a Airbnb. Well, not really an Airbnb. My parents bid on this farmhouse at a charity auction in North Carolina and got it. This is in Southwest Virginia near Galax. Um, the skies were pretty nice at the time. It was a Bortle 3, I think. And when I saw the Milky Way one night and saw the potential of combining that in the house, I did through my Nikon D800, which I was shooting at the time, on a tripod with a 14 to 24 millimeter lens, and then leveraged my family members to help with the lighting of the house. So um, how I balanced the Milky Way and the house lights, the first floor is being illuminated only by the nightlight under the microwave over the stove. So there's one tiny light there. The second floor was all bedrooms. There was one long hallway in the back of the house, and every window you see is a bedroom. Um, I had my sister go up and turn the light on in the back hall, and then crack each of the bedroom doors as small as they would go. And in a 15-second exposure at f2.8, ISO 4000, everything balanced just fine. I got it in one shot. Uh, so that's my untracked single image Milky Way. Star trails. Again, this used to be very simple. With film, you literally put your camera on a tripod, aim it north, get your foreground the way you want it, and let it go. This is an example of 90 minutes with a 28 millimeter lens on 35 millimeter film, Fujichrome Provia slide film. Nowadays, with digital cameras, it's a little more complex. You take multiple long exposures of about 25 seconds or so, and then stack them in software such as StarStax, which will help blend the star trails together so you don't get interruptions. It's not a technique that I've tried with the digital camera, but I invite you to research it and give it a whirl. It was always tough with film to get a long enough exposure to get a big arch of the stars. 90 minutes was about the longest I ever got. So with the intervalometer and the stacking technique, you could probably easily, if you've got a clear enough night, you could get an all-night trail, which would be almost, full circles, at least horizon to horizon. Single image aurora images. So this was the October 2024 aurora storm from Shenandoah National Park. Beautiful. I hope you guys were out imaging it as well. This is with my Fuji GFX 100, the 23 millimeter lens f1.4, 6400 ISO. So just a 3-second exposure so I could get the columns, but it was bright. You could see clearly. Certainly the green and even the red was pretty obvious to the naked eye.
Hey, Steve, real quick,
Mm-hmm.
for the shots that you just showed, in my Canon camera, for example, there are various automatic modes, aperture priority and whatever else. Are you setting these manually using bulb mode or?
So it's all manual. Depending on your camera, it may have a limit to the longest shutter speed that you can set, in which case you might need to go to bulb or time mode.
Okay.
But say 3 seconds is going to be available for every camera. I think the simpler cameras might have a limit of 30 seconds or 60 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
With the Fuji, I'm forgetting the long. It's several minutes at least, but yeah, it depends on your camera. But otherwise, all manual. Manual exposure so that you can control everything. You don't want your camera trying to make a decision in the dark.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love shooting the moon, either moonrise or moonset, under the right conditions. This was a single row panorama I shot in Sedona. Um, I had been watching the weather uh, over the several days, and we had had some rain the day before and into the morning of this day, but I knew it was going to clear. And what I hoped was that the sky would be clear to the west and clear enough that after the sun set, you would get that orange dome where the sun sets on the horizon. That's called a twilight arch. And it's a very warm light. And Sedona, all the cliff sides are that wonderful sandstone. Under those conditions, I knew it would glow. And so I took a chance, hiked up to this spot, set up the camera, and just sat down to wait, which is how I love to work. I love to just pick my composition, get everything ready, and then wait for the light. I could not have predicted how intense that glow was going to be. It was so bright and lasted so long, it lit my way down the trail to the car after I was done. That cliff face was just an orange light source on the eastern horizon. It was wonderful. Um, I mentioned this is a panorama, but it's a mosaic. So this is, I've got the camera on a tripod on a bracket that allows me to pivot the camera over the nodal point of the lens. And I'll talk about that in a bit. This is 8 vertical images stitched together, one of which had the moon in it. And I'll go into detail of how I planned where the knew where the moon was going to rise, where it was going to be when it would be as high as I wanted it to be, so that I could have the camera all set up and ready to go. And this is a moon set over the Eastern Sierra. Um, this image was the entire purpose of my trip out to California that year. I wanted this shot. I wanted it over snowy mountains. The day of the full moon, it was completely clouded out. And the next day was the day I was going to be leaving to head back east. And I had one chance to get this shot and nailed it. This again is another mosaic, but it's a multi-row mosaic. So not only is it a wide image, I shot this with my Fuji GFX 50S and a 250 millimeter lens with a 1.x teleconverter. The resolution of this image is insane. This was my first gigapixel image. At full resolution, you can count the branches on the pine trees on the mountains. You can see footsteps in the snow on the trail leading up to Mount Whitney. It's phenomenal. You can see snow blowing off the cliffs. It's a great image, and I have this. There's a couple of locations at Sedona Taphouse that have this as a triptych on their wall. It's phenomenal.
How many sub-images are in this mosaic? How long did it take to collect them all?
That's an excellent question. It's 54 images in total. It's 3 rows. I think from the first exposure to the last was about 4 minutes. And actually, I cheated a little bit. To get the moon, I shot the top of the mountains, and then when I got under the moon was not in frame. I aimed the camera up to get the moon, came back down and finished the row, and then finished the other 2 rows. And so I brought the moon in where it would be, because Because it was the day after the full moon, I knew the sun would start hitting the mountains before I wanted the blue hour. Um, I did get an alpine glow image of this with the moon a little closer to the mountain in a single. I caught the moon with the exposure on the mountain. But yeah, it took 4 or 5 minutes to get all the images. You start with the sky or the sky area so that light changes there. It won't change in the middle of the exposure as you're shooting that row. That's a technique I use when I'm shooting clouds with this technique and whatnot. Do the sky first. But yeah, this was 20 minutes before sunrise, and then I said I did another one just as the sun was rising and the glow was lighting up the top of the mountain. For whatever reason, I like the cool one better than the warm one with the alpine glow.
And what do you use to stitch this all together?
And how many hours did it take?
Oh, that's an excellent question. I did the initial stitch at my hotel room on that trip, and it was just a Mac Pro laptop. It took about an hour to stitch, but it did it without crashing. I was shocked. But for my multi-row panoramas or any mosaics, I use either Lightroom and or Photoshop. I've got a YouTube channel, and I think there's a link in this presentation where I show some techniques for mosaics and how if you're shooting a sky with really subtle clouds, it won't stitch well because there's not enough contrast for it to recognize where each of the frames go together. But there are some techniques that you can use to manually stitch. And because you're doing a panorama with the camera moving left and right, it's kind of curved. So when you do a stitch with the software, it flattens and does that for you. But when you're doing it manually, you've got to kind of wiggle it yourself. And there's a video of mine. If you go to YouTube and look for my name, you'll see it. It's been a while since I did any videos, and please don't kill me too harshly because of the quality of my narration. But yeah, feel free to check that out and learn some techniques on mosaics. And we'll go into that a little more later. Leading up to this presentation in the Novak Imagers group, there was some conversations about mosaics, and so I included some details on those in this presentation because of that. And I'm glad you're asking questions about it because that'll make sense for me to carry on with some of those here. So I saw this image on the web as well. This was a single row panorama Milky Way arch. This is Sedona. This is a location I know very well. I've never been there at a time. I'm usually there when a full moon or near a full moon because I want the moon. I haven't planned a trip out there during a new moon to focus on the Milky Way, but I know how to figure out the time and the location for these things. And I show a screenshot here of an app called Planet Pro that lets you, it has a VR viewfinder, which takes GPS and information to give you an idea of the landscape where you're setting your pin. So what you're seeing on the right is the screenshot of Viewfinder VR in Planet Pro of this scene in Sedona with the mountain, which that mountain range on the left is the same mountain that was in my here. You'll recognize the shape. What's in the middle there is called Courthouse Butte, and then Bell Rock is on the right. And you can see the outline of those three features in the Planet Pro screen, showing the arch of the Milky Way. So in the year that this image was published, you can see the date was August 26, 2024. To get that frame, or sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing. March 27th, 2025 is when I could have shot it if I went to Sedona. So the details of this image, 12 vertical images shot with a Nikon D810, 1424 lens at 14 millimeters, 15 seconds each image at f2.8 ISO 8000.
Hey, Steve, in the slide before this, the one with the mountains, the snowy mountains,
Uh-huh.
what was the source of the light?
That is the twilight glow on the eastern horizon. That's the
Okay.
blue hour glow as the sun is starting to light up the sky. It's a very intense blue. You only really see it well after sunset or before sunrise.
Thank you.
I was wondering about the brightness difference between the left and the right. Is that like in the middle is like the anti-solar point or something like that? Looks like there's a gradient in the blue sky left to right, a little.
That is, let me see. I think that's primarily moon glow.
Oh.
Brightening up the middle there.
Oh, okay.
Yep. It could be snow as well, because there's, if I were able to zoom in on the image, there's a lot of snow blowing around at the top of the mountain. So it could be reflecting the light. Anything else? So a tracked blend. I mentioned a blend is two or more images taken at the same location around the same time. This is an example I shot of the comet. What was the comet? Shoot. One of the comet Atlases of a couple of years ago. It was near the core of the Milky Way. I shot the comet with a tracking with the camera on a tracker. I think there were it was a 60-second image. I had to do a tracker because there was no way that I would get sharp stars at that long of an exposure. And then shot the foreground separately to catch that triangular rock formation in the foreground. This was at Range View Overlook in Shenandoah National Park, and it's called Range View because you get just mountain range after mountain range after mountain range after mountain range in the distance. And yeah, so each exposure was at 6400. I realized later there was no reason to shoot the landscape image at 6400 ISO, but I could have gotten a cleaner image with a longer exposure. But I don't mind the noise in it, especially with the GFX. It's such a high resolution image. The noise is very fine. Any questions on this technique?
I guess I'm a little surprised it's not more star trail or something like that with 60 seconds. Is that?
It was tracking. I had it on a tracker.
Got it. Yeah. Gotcha. Okay.
How do you blend the boundary in the horizon?
Software. Okay. Yeah, there's software for each platform. There's the best software yet for this isn't available multi-platform. So the Mac has one, PC has one, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. A stack tracked mosaic composite. This is an image of mine titled Rivers of Light. This is a scene. I shot the landscape in October 2024, shot the Milky Way in March. Sorry, other way around. Landscape was March of 2020. The Milky Way was 2024 in Virginia, and blended them together. Now, if you do this, you should really do it in a way that it could really happen. This alignment is realistic. As the position of the Milky Way over the mountain, this is Laurel Mountain in California. It really happens. It can be imaged from about mid-September to late October every year. I've just never been out there at that time of year. I desperately want to go one year because then you can get fall color with the aspens and beautiful. But anyway, this alignment is real. It's just I didn't shoot it all in one image. The landscape is a multi-row panorama, again, because I love shooting landscapes that way. The Milky Way is a single image, stacked and tracked this time. So it's a little deeper than that one. The detail on the Milky Way is a little greater because it's a stacked image and tracked. I'm trying to remember, there were somewhere between 16 and 30 1 minute tracked images to stack that Milky Way, shot with Fuji GFX 100. And this is another screenshot of Planet Pro showing that alignment actually does happen. In this case, it was set for October 14th, 2025 at 7:35 p.m. One day I'll get that out there and do it for real. So planning an Astro-Landscape. There's a number of apps that help you do this. I've mentioned Planet Pro twice already. I use an Apple iPhone. I think all of these tools are available for Android as well, but don't hate me if one of them or more of them aren't. But Planet Pro, Photo Pills, the Photographer's Ephemeris, of course, Google Earth, Google Maps, and a light pollution map of any variety. And I think Photographer's Ephemeris also gives you a light pollution map. But these are all great. They do many of the same things, but something like Planet Pro and Photo Pills have some unique capabilities that the others don't. And I'll go through each one separately. Planet Pro is not free. It's $10. It is for Apple and Android. You've got the ability to see sun and moon positions, rise and set times for each. Civil, nautical, and astronomical twilight timing, golden hour, blue hour, astro night, sun moon finder, which almost every app has, star trail calculations, which is interesting, Milky Way core finder, when it will be in a given position on a given date range, Milky Way pano planner, which we've seen, meteor shower info, light pollution map, time-lapse calculations, sun sequence planner, eclipse planners, augmented reality, virtual reality, and the list goes on. And I provide a link for the feature list. Feel free to look it up. Planet Pro, one of the problems is that the UI is not the most easily understood, but they do augment it with excellent PDFs of each of the components of the app. That takes some time to study, but you can download those and basically make a book with it. But yeah, the documentation is very good and very helpful. Photo Pills. It's $1 more than Planet Pro. You've got planning capabilities, so you could find when the Milky Way will be in a given position, for example. Again, sun and moon position, rise and set, Milky Way visibility, when is the core visible, etc. Meteor shower info, star trail exposure duration calculator to show you how long the arcs will be on a given duration. Spot stars, which is basically a rule of 500 calculation, so you don't have to figure it out yourself. Time-lapse calculator, augmented reality, depth of field calculation, reciprocity calculation if you're shooting film, depth of field calculations, field of view calculations, hyperfocal distance calculations, which is useful for landscapes, timer, subject distance calculations, and equivalent focal length matching between different cameras. So APS-C versus full frame versus more than full frame medium format. Photographer's Ephemeris, another $10 app. There's also a website for this that's free. Again, sun, moon positions, rise, set, astronautical civil twilights, galactic center, rise and set times, augmented reality, search for positions, shadow length illustration, sunrise, sunset, sky color predictions with an in-app purchase. This is called Skyfire. Very useful for seeing if the next couple of mornings or evenings might have colorful sunsets or sunrises. Simpler interface than the other two, less confusing app. This one is you could figure it out on your own. You don't really need extensive documentation. Google Maps Street View I find very helpful for research and planning where I want to be and when I want to be there. Everyone, most folks are familiar with the images created on roads by cameras on cars that are hired or owned by Google, but individuals with 360-degree cameras or the ability to create 360-degree panos will also upload images that are on trails. But I think Google also augmented their car fleet with backpacks so that someone can walk the trail and be taking street view images along the trail. So you'll notice in this screenshot I've got here of the Google Maps page, you see the blue lines for the streets. That's where the cars have gone, even into the parking lot of one of the trailheads. But there are these blue dots all over the landscape. Those are 360-degree panos that have been uploaded by individuals. And so every one of those spots can show you what the landscape looks like from that position to give you and it'll show you, okay, you're facing east or northeast or whatever. So you can start planning out where you want to be for your shot. The Milky Way core and when it is visible. At our latitude, it's roughly March to November. So we're right along the time. It's going to be up about 4 a.m. these days. And every day it'll rise a little bit earlier. The time, and it's possible early in the season, from March to early summer, to get that Milky Way arch that you saw in a picture a few slides ago. This is where you're shooting from southeast to northeast. As a pano, you're either shooting really wide with a single image or you're creating a pano. The later you wait in the season, the higher that arch will be and the wider the lens has to be to get it, even if you're doing a mosaic. Later in the season, however, September, October, early November, is really excellent for vertical Milky Way compositions because the Milky Way just stands up on its core and goes straight up, as you saw in my my composite image of the winding river. So planning a Milky Way arch. I started to plan out and documented the planning for Milky Way arch last year, but the weather skunked me. Never got to do it. And the weather this year hasn't been any better, but maybe we'll have a clear stretch. But I start out using Google Street View to try to figure out a foreground. That's really important for the Milky Way arch to make it interesting. You've got to give it a subject in the foreground under that arch. I love going to Shenandoah National Park and starting to scout locations. There's an overlook here just south of the midpoint entry station, whose name is escaping me at the moment. But you get these rocks and these trees at the overlook, and I started to plan out whether that could work as a foreground for a Milky Way arch. And you'll see this is a street view image, and in the lower left corner, there's a little figure representing where the camera is positioned and the direction it's facing. So the little arrow that jogs down to the lower right, that's showing me I'm looking at the southeast. And you can scroll across until you get to the northeast, and that would be the area that you're going to get the arch. And then planning the date and time. This is the same location, the location of the overlook from Planet Pro. It's hard, it might be hard to make out on the screen, but there is a graphic showing the Milky Way core as progressively larger circles. And that shows you at the given time, which was May 28th of last year at 10:59, the core would be roughly to the right of those trees based on the positioning that I was able to determine from Google Street View. And so I knew that, on that day, if the sky were clear right before 11 o'clock, I could start that panorama. There's also augmented reality, which shows you the Milky Way in a live view with your camera. And I'll show you how that works. I recorded video on my phone. Let's see if it plays here. Yeah. Are you seeing the video?
Yes, we are.
So that's what it looks like as I pan the camera. You can see where the Milky Way core would be and where the arm would stretch out over and then go into the trees. So if I did my image from that location, I'll play it again. Hit Viewfinder VR, or Viewfinder AR, sorry. And I like this view because you had the stone guide rail or guardrail curving off, mirroring the curve of the galaxy. So maybe I'll try that again this year. Star trail calculators, showing you how long your star trails would be for a given exposure with a given focal length. PhotoPills and Planet Pro have different ways of doing it. I really like the Planet Pro way because it combines it with the Viewfinder augmented reality. So PhotoPills shows you how long the curves would be for a given number of hours. You can choose North or South Pole views. And Planet Pro attempts to show you what the star trails would look like for a given field of view with a lens, in this case, a 14 millimeter. The Nikon 14 millimeter on a full frame camera with a given landscape showing the curves. And here you can see you're just with that 14 millimeters, you're getting the curve this way with the northern stars around Polaris and a slight curve on the southern stars with straight-ish stars in the middle. Very useful for planning your composition. If you know where you want to be, and when you want to be there. So how do you execute all this? We've talked about the types of nightscapes. We talked about how you plan, but how do you put it all together? So equipment considerations. You got to have a tripod, a tripod or a telescope mount or something for that camera to sit on. If you're going for a tripod and camera, a ball head maximizes the ease of leveling the camera and putting it in a position that you want. A tracker is optional, but very useful if you want to do longer exposures than you can get from just a camera and tripod. Most trackers, purpose-built trackers, have a weight limit of about 11 pounds or less, which doesn't sound like much, but you know, virtually any camera you're going to have with a wide-angle lens is going to weigh less than that. As for camera, that's everyone's favorite question, you know, Nikon versus Canon, et cetera, et cetera. Use what you have. Start out with what you got, and once you recognize any limitations, if there are any, then you can think about what to replace it with. I've mentioned that I'm using Fuji, and I will be the first to admit that Fuji is not the most ideal format or camera for this kind of work. Because Sony and Nikon and Canon, their low light sensitivity and response is better than Fuji. But I'm not going to buy into another camera system. So you can do this with stuff that may not be ideal, but if you want to make things easier on yourself, there are some considerations for that. For lenses, you typically want 24 millimeter or wider, especially if you're trying to do single image compositions. That's one of the problems with APS-C cameras, the crop sensor cameras, because wide angle is tough. For a 24 millimeter field of view on a full frame, you would need to go like 16 millimeters, which is doable. But with a full frame, you can get a 14 millimeter, which is going to have a field of view that you're really not going to get on an APS-C camera. Large apertures, the low numbers, f1.4 to f2.8, is what you want to help with the light levels. A pano head, so how I do the panoramas and the mosaics is optional. It's unless you really want to do a multi-row mosaic, in which case it kind of becomes required. But you can do without for single rows, and I'll talk about some of the considerations for that. An intervalometer. This is what will take multiple images without you having to touch the camera. It's built in to some cameras. Look at what you've got and read the manual. Fuji's got a very good one. And you can combine that with wired and wireless remotes. I use a wireless remote that once I'm set up, I just hit a button and let the intervalometer do its thing, or just keep hitting the button myself. And
Hey, Steve,
yes.
Steve, we had a question from Dave Stokes. Special tripod head for the big mosaics. You might have answered it with the pano head, but
Right. And I'll show you that in a bit.
okay, good.
Yep.
Okay. If you don't have any camera, if you're not tied to a particular optical system, what are the trade-offs between the major vendors? Well, is there one that stands out, or is it, Canon, Sony,
Yeah.
how do you choose if you're just starting out?
Excellent question, and a tough one to answer. It used to be one of my major considerations is the availability of lenses on the used market, because if you can get lightly used gear, always go that way. There's no need to buy new if you can get something used. And 5, 10 years ago, Nikon and Canon had that aspect locked up. Nikon, especially before they came out with their mirrorless, because all Nikon lenses worked with all Nikon cameras from back to the 50s. But then they came out with the Z mount and kind of blew that away, although there are the Z adapters that can put the older lenses on the newer cameras, or vice versa. Um, the Sony, the Sony sensors have the is it the V series cameras? I'm forgetting. There's one series of Sony cameras that have better low light response, but lower resolution. The pixel sizes are larger. Great for low light video if you're vlogging or you just like shooting low light video. I think that aspect Sony is best, but honestly, nowadays, look at the lens selection, the lens availability, and honestly, you can't go wrong with any of them. Sony, Canon, Nikon, and people will give you their opinion. One's better, way better than the others, but it might not be empirical evidence. Just opinion. You can't. Yeah, you're not going to go wrong with either or with any of them. There may be features that are more attractive. For instance, for my landscape work, the Fuji cameras, the GFX line, they have a depth of field indicator on a focus scale on the LCD screen that shows a blue line on a focus scale that shows you your depth of field. Very useful and very easy for me to figure out how to do focus stacks when I know I can't get the full depth of field of the image in one image. Other cameras, the depth of field is a preview on the image itself. So you're clicking a button or whatever to see the effective depth of field, but it doesn't really tell you how far it is. The depth of field preview scale that Fuji gives is phenomenal and makes focus stacks very easy. And I think I go into that in a little bit. Does that help, or did I just confuse things?
Yeah, that helps. Thank you.
Yeah, look at the lens selection. Look at what's available. Go to your local camera store, assuming you still have one, and ask to see something, and see if they can tell you, the advantages of one over the other and whether that matters to you. So, I mentioned the rule of 500 before. This is 500 divided by the lens focal length, giving you the maximum seconds for round or roundish stars in a full frame equivalent. So if you're using an APS-C crop sensor, you need to account for that. So your rule of 500 is going to be less for a crop sensor than a shorter exposure for a crop sensor than it would be for a full frame sensor. For example, a 24 millimeter lens on full frame will give you a 20-second exposure, but the 24 millimeter equivalent on a crop sensor only gives you 16 seconds. Sorry, I'm getting confused. The rule of 400 for tighter tolerances. Rule of 500, if you zoom in and you've got a high enough resolution on your camera, you're going to notice that the stars are a little elongated. Whether that matters at web resolution or printed is up to you, but you can use the rule of 400 for tighter tolerances, which for a 24 millimeter lens on a full frame camera The rule of 400 says 16 seconds. The rule of 500 says 20. For a 14 millimeter lens, the rule of 400 says 28 seconds, while the 500 says 36 seconds. So your mileage may vary. You're going to have to test to see what works for you and what you can tolerate. Because depending on the ISO performance of your camera, a rule of 400 exposure may not be enough. You may not be getting enough data in your or enough signal to the noise. So you'll have to experiment. ISO and aperture affect quality of the image through noise and star quality. This is another thing. Certain lenses do better with star images than others. When camera manufacturers are making their lenses, they're making them for everyday use, for sports, for weddings, for landscapes, for portraits. They're not thinking of point light sources in the sky. So pinched optics and whatnot that have no influence whatsoever on a portrait can give you some really funky effects on a bright star. So research, unfortunately, there's not enough people who review lenses that actually take astrophotography into account. So it can be tough to see how it works. I might suggest if you've got a camera store that does rentals, that you ask to rent a lens before you buy it. So if you're using it for astrophotography, you can see the quality. Sometimes it helps. Wide open, you'll get pinched optic effects and other aberrations. It might help to stop down a stop or two, go from f1.4 to f2 to 2.8. But then you're getting less light in, so it's all a balancing act.
Steve?
ISO, yes.
Yeah, I've got a question, especially in the context of some of these past sessions that we've had from Jeff. And I suppose this would like go all the way on your full complexity scale of, easy to hard. But, Jeff has told us over the time about, these various software that can do, miracles with stars, some of the PixInsight plugins, I guess.
Yep.
But have you, Steve, tried to, and maybe it gets more away from the composition and kind of the beautiful elements of what you've shown us, but tried to use maybe more traditional astrophotography stacking software on the sky part and then composite in the land after the fact.
Yep.
What your thoughts on that?
I have. I think I've got a slide coming up showing PixInsight for stacking and another starry landscape stacker on the Mac.
Oh, okay.
And I can, if I open up Lightroom in my library, I can show you that PixInsight won't fix everything. But whether that matters or not, some folks might find those aberrations kind of pretty. But we'll get that in a second. But excellent question. Make sure I answer that later. So higher ISO generally means higher noise. Larger apertures introduce aberrations and distortion in stars. I'll go into ISO a little bit longer or more in a slide or two. But modern CMOS sensors have a quirk in them that what's it called? ISO invariant exposures, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. Again, you can stack short exposures to improve signal noise ratio, and we just talked about that with your question, but we'll get more to it shortly. Trackers. The three big players in this realm are Move, Shoot, Move, and their Nomad, the Ioptron Skyguider Pro, and the Skywatcher Star Adventure GTI. The Skyguider Pro and the Star Adventurer GTI have an 11-pound payload capacity. The Move Shoot Move only has a 7.7 pound, but it's pocket size. So there's something to be said for portability, especially if you're flying. But at the time that I made this presentation, which was before the tariffs fiasco, the prices for these were as shown here: $341 for the Move Shoot Move, $359 for the Skyguider Pro, and $720 for the Star Adventure. I know folks who use the Star Adventure for telescopes as well. It's not just a tracker, but one of the differences between the Skyguider Pro and the Star Adventurer is the Skyguider Pro only tracks in right ascension, so it follows the stars. The Star Adventurer can correct in right ascension and declination, if you've got a tracker, a guider of some sort. So what is the right exposure?
For a second, did you mention you had experience with the first option as well, the Nomad?
I've never used a Nomad. Yeah, it's essentially like a Skyguider, a lighter weight Skyguider Pro. I think it only tracks in right ascension. But yeah, it's the form factor can't be beat. It's very, very small.
Thanks.
So what's the right exposure? How do you know when you've done enough? So your shutter speed is really constrained by your star trails and the lack thereof, if you want them to be round. So again, rule of 500 or 400. Set the aperture wide open or close down one stop. Again, your experimentation will tell you what works best. And then you experiment with ISO. You test exposures to get the histogram, the peak of the histogram, 1/3 to 1/2 from the left of the frame. So the histogram for a Fuji GFX is shown on the screen at right. You can see that peak. You get a lot, because I've got some landscape, which is just black. You get that peak on the far left. Ignore that. The sky is that mountain range looking thing in the middle. And you can see how the peak of it for most of the colors is 1/3 of the way from the left. That's where the sweet spot is. If you go further to the right, you're okay, but you're going to be tweaking that exposure in post-processing. 1/3 from the left is, like I said, the sweet spot. It allows enough shadow detail to permit image adjustments for exposure, color, contrast, and saturation, and you're not blowing anything out by exposing too much. So here's the experiment between PixInsight and Starry Landscape Stacker. The PixInsight is the right image, Starry Landscape Stacker is the left. Notice the landscape, the ridge line. It's blurred in PixInsight because PixInsight, at least at the time I don't know if anyone's done a new module for it yet, but Starry Landscape Stacker, which has a PC equivalent of Sequator, will not just blend the stars, the star exposures, but will also blend the landscape to make it sharp as well. So if you want to track with the landscape in the image, and you don't want to do a blend later between different images, then one of these tools, Starry Landscape Stacker or Sequator, is the way to go. I don't know how well it would work with, say, a tree, where you've got a lot of fine branches and whatnot that are tricky. I think that kind of thing is best left to a blend. And there's all kinds of YouTube content about how to do that. Different techniques, some work better than others. But just for, say, a ridge line or even a building in the foreground, Starry Landscape Stacker would do it better than PixInsight. ISO invariance in modern digital cameras. There is a website called Photons to Photos, and they've got just about every camera made in their list, and you can compare the ISO capabilities of various cameras. And you can see on these graphs where different cameras, at a certain point, the noise level plateaus or drops and goes horizontal. And you can increase the ISO with no effect of noise. And it's a weird phenomenon that's only been recognized the last couple of years. And it's the ability to recover shadows. So it's basically your ability to adjust the exposure in post-processing and not see a dramatic drop in quality of the image. So most cameras today see a dramatic. It's I guess the equivalent if you're familiar with Astro cameras today, the ZWO and the whatnot. What are they? The unity gain point where you get that the improvement in quality. That's what we're talking about here with these CMOS sensors. Most cameras see a dramatic drop in read noise at about ISO 500 and shadow recovery that remains the same above ISO 6400 or so, or 640. The sweet spot across camera brands seems to be between ISO 800 and 1600 with exposure times of 30 seconds to 2 minutes. And use ISO 3200 for shorter exposures and test the heck out of it. See what you like, see what works for you, and take sky conditions into account, the transparency of the sky. If the sky is brighter versus darker, you're going to see some more noise in the non-star areas. Astro modified cameras and both DSLRs and mirrorless cameras. This is a consideration if you're shopping for something new and you like the scenes of, say, the Milky Way with all of the hydrogen alpha nebulosity just really prevalent. Those are modified cameras. There are companies that will, and some, Canon has a tendency to release cameras that without the UV IR cut filter. They're the A series cameras, like the Canon RA, which is no longer made, but it might be available on the used market. It has an increased sensitivity into the H alpha and almost into the infrared. So you can get the nebulosity, think of the Orion Nebula, that red nebula. There's lots of that around the core of the Milky Way. And so basically it turns the sensor in that DSLR or mirrorless camera into the kind of sensor that you would get in an Astro camera from ZWO or whatnot. But it's uncooled. So that's the advantage of a true Astro camera is you've got in most of them, you've got cooling capability to reduce noise. With the DSLR and the whatnot, you're not going to have that cooling. But in a lot of cases, it doesn't matter. If you're doing images like the Milky Way, Astro-Landscapes and Nightscapes, you don't need cooling. But I think the big player in modifying aftermarket modification to these cameras is Spencer's Camera. They're out in California. I think it's California. They've got a list of cameras that do really well with this. So check that out. If you're thinking of buying a camera and then having it modified, I think it's hard to find modified cameras on the used market because people tend to hold on to them. But that might be a consideration for your hunt if you're looking for a new camera to buy it with the intent of modifying it. And that's one of the reasons that Fuji I would not recommend unless you're already bought into it. The Fuji cameras don't modify all that well, unfortunately. So the question was asked before, how do you do the settings for these images? So focusing is really should be manual. Something to look for in a camera, I think most cameras have them these days, is a live view on the LCD that lets you zoom in. That's very useful for pointing your camera up, making sure you've got a bright star in the field of view, setting it in live view, and then zooming in with the controls, the way you can zoom in on an image when you review it, and then fiddling with the focus. In-camera autofocus, by and large, is useless. It's not going to see the star. It's not going to focus on it. But Pentax and Olympus do have star autofocus features that I hear work pretty darn well. A lot of cameras, Fuji particularly, I think they're Canon, some of the lines of Canon, they have focus by wire lenses, meaning you're not really moving the lens groups with the focus ring. You're causing a motor in the camera or the lens to move the rings. They have no infinity stop. So you can just turn and turn and turn and turn and turn. So if you've got one of those, live view is the way to go. A lens with infinity stops, all the way to infinity, usually isn't correct. You typically have to bump against that infinity stop and then back it off a little bit. But the temperature of the lens is going to have an effect on that. So much like with astrophotography at the telescope, it's one of the best accessories you can buy as an autofocuser that has a temperature sensor capability, so that when the temperature drops a degree or two, it'll refocus because your focal length changes as the lens elements change temperature. So if you take the same lens out on a summer night versus a winter night, and you've got a 60-degree temperature difference, your best focus for a star is going to be a slightly different position.
Hey, Steve,
Yes.
two quick things. One is we're down to about 6 minutes. And the second, we have a couple of questions. How heavy is your gear bag? And what was the other one? We're setting up a field trip. And the question is mirrorless better for astrophotography?
I won't say better. It's a little simpler. With a DSLR and the mirror cage, you would need to lock up the mirror. Otherwise, when it moves up, it's going to slap, and you're going to get some vibration. So inherently, a mirrorless camera is a simpler mechanism, so you don't get that slap. Although if you've got a shutter, if you're really wanting to get the best quality image of the stars, you want that shutter to be open before you start the exposure. So there's usually a way to do that, and different cameras do it in a different way. Fuji calls it electronic shutter, but you want to eliminate every possibility of vibration you can. So if you go mirrorless, look out for that. If you go DSLR, there should be a way to lock up the mirror before you start the exposure. Let me go through quickly before we run out of time. A Bahtinov mask for lenses, those are available, but they don't work well for lenses of 35 millimeter or wider. But for super wide lenses, depth of field is your friend, even at f2.8. So if you get it close and you've got live view and you can zoom in, you're going to be sharp. Matching equipment to the technique. Astro-modified camera plus wide fast glass, single exposure Milky Way landscapes or blends. Non-modified camera, wide to fast normal glass, stack blends, composites, et cetera, et cetera. I'll send this presentation to Jeff and you can share it out since we got to run. Additional camera settings, external intervalometer if you don't have one, internal. You might have to set your camera on bulb mode, consult your manual. Turn off long exposure noise reduction because it'll screw up your images. Manual exposure mode, aperture is wide open or one stop down. White balance to daylight or Kelvin between 4800 to 5600. That will do you well. Shoot raw, do not shoot JPEG. Landscape panoramas and mosaics. I'm going to suggest if you're really interested in this, I could do a follow-up presentation because this gets into its own long, hour-long conversation. But panos, it's how I shoot landscapes. I cannot recommend these enough, but you are shooting a lot of images and you are you're causing your computer a lot of work when you put them together. I did give a demo of how pano heads work to Novak. Don't have time here. Panorama stitching, Lightroom, Photoshop, PT GUI, Auto Stitch, GigaPan Stitch, ArcSoft Panorama Maker, and Pano Weaver. Those are the ones that were available as of last year. I don't know if anything new's come out. These are multi-row mosaics that I've done before, and the one on the left is the subject of the YouTube video I mentioned before. If you look me up, you'll find that and how I did it. This is creating a panorama in Lightroom. More tips and tricks. These are all multi-row mosaics. And that was it. Got it in.
Beautiful pictures.
Thank you.
Gorgeous.
Anybody have questions?
I had another question. Just cameras. I mean, you talked about cameras and lenses, and I wonder, and you actually mentioned about Astro cameras too. And I wonder if you've done anything that might have used like an Astro camera with a larger sensor size, maybe even like like the ZWO 6200 or something like that with stock lens from other cameras. I'm not sure how you would mate them, but whether or not you get different performance between that sensor and and other sensors.
So ZWO actually makes adapters for Canon and Nikon lenses, and Sony, I think, as well. The trick there is it has to be a lens that's not focused by wire. I mentioned that before. You need to be able to manually focus that lens by itself. So there's a limited, just any Sony or Canon or Nikon lens isn't going to work. A lot of people do this with the Rokinon 135, which is widely recognized as one of the best wide field of view as far as an astro image works. For things like Ro Ophiuchi and whatnot. It's not quite wide enough to do the full core of the Milky Way. And I don't know enough about the wider angle lenses for those three brands to tell you which one, a 24 millimeter on a full frame Astro camera, what one works well. And the wider angle you get, I think you're going to see more aberrations, especially to the corners that correct only blur exterminator in PixInsight may not resolve. Um, I mentioned bringing up an example. Maybe I've got time. Hold on one second. Hold on. Hopefully we won't get cut off. Let me grab it. Come on. Let me share. Okay. Can you see my Lightroom?
Yes.
Okay.
You see it? Yep.
So this, I shot this with my Fuji. Look at those stars.
Wow.
So this is wide open on, what was the lens? Hold on. I stacked this, so yeah, I stacked it in PixInsight, so I lost track of which lens it was. I think it was, oh, it was it wasn't the GFX, it was my XT3 with a 200 to 400 or 50 to 180, sorry, 50 to 180 f2.8, wide open at 2.8. So you get these star spikes that PixInsight Blur Exterminator was not able to handle. It actually sharpened them. So the spikes. So kind of pretty. You can see the color aberration as well, the blue on one side and the pink on the other. But yeah. So different lenses have different characteristics. Again, you got to experiment. So if you're thinking of buying something for Astro, maybe try to rent it first and see how it does.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
Nope.
I have a quick one. Maybe you mentioned selling your prints before. Like, how did you manage copyright violations, or did you have someone try to track down if anyone tried to copy it or sell it themselves? And what's your opinion? Like these days, is that viable
Oh,
business? Is that even doable these days?
it's whether you care or not. If you put something on the web, it's really put it low enough resolution that it's not going to print well. If somebody wants to print that out on their little inkjet printer, who cares? If you're posting high resolution stuff, there's lots of things you can do. Put your watermark in it or whatnot, but then that might destroy the enjoyment of the image.
Well, my question was like, did you run into
Oh,
like
have I ever run into that? No,
someone trying to sell your print on Etsy as a poster, and claiming that there's their own or something? Or
not that I've ever found, because I've never seen anyone take one of my landscape images. Not to give you the idea, Pedro.
I was approaching it from a kind of different, like I'm not even interested in the commercial side of it, but I'm just like these days I feel like anytime you post anything on the internet, it will be gobbled up immediately by someone, and there's no way to prevent it. And
Yeah,
most companies don't even try to. Like I heard stories where people like submitting complaints to Amazon, and they don't really do anything about the complaints anymore. So, but yeah, thanks.
yeah, it's yeah.
Hey,
Actually, it
Steve.
brings up that brings up an interesting thing. Is Steve, what sort of printing method does the best justice to your landscapes? If somebody wanted to buy your landscapes, what medium would best, reproduce them?
So for the longest time, I avoided the processes that result in supersaturated, contrasting things, the super glossy stuff. I shot my stuff to print well on matte paper, basically. I knew I have a large format printer here. I know the characteristics of the paper. I know how to plan and execute a landscape image so it works well for that. And then, and I would do canvases as well, which are a kind of matte paper. And then Sedona Taphouse started requesting aluminum because their interior designer that they use suggested it to them. And I have to admit, I was impressed when I got the first samples back. I used Bay Photo to print for them because they can print pretty big, the largest being a 48 by 96. Um, and the stuff looks good, even though it's created to work with matte and the subtle tones and gradations of matte paper. It really works well on aluminum. So on my site, I offer limited editions that I print myself on paper, but I do allow for uh, uh, non-limited edition versions on aluminum and whatnot because people like it, and I don't want to limit myself to something or lose a potential customer that wouldn't like that. But because I would send it off to be printed and drop ship it right to the customer, I can't sign it, so it wouldn't be a limited edition, and I'm not touching it in any way, so I don't consider it part of my limited edition.
Do you have to process it differently for print versus digital display? Do you have to like boost I don't know, colors or exposure or something?
Mostly sharpness. It's especially with my Astro work. The sharpness I would apply to printing, I have found doesn't work when I upload it to say AstroBin. It makes it look a little garish. So I've got different sharpening techniques when I export to JPEG for some certain sites as opposed to print. And then I did a calendar. Let me get that. Where last year for Christmas I did a calendar of my work. Had that printed by Bay Photo as well, and did find because it was a different printing. It was a printing press rather than their normal printing styles. I did find I had to adjust the colors a little bit, desaturate a little bit because it kind of overpowered the ink. But testing showed me how much I had to go one way or the other. The blackness of space and whatnot was hard to control initially, but I got it figured out.
Hey,
Test, test,
Steve.
test. Yep.
Steve, just hey, first of all, I want to thank you. This was a fantastic presentation. This is very good. Appreciate all of the advice and the beautiful astro-landscape photography. That was excellent.
Thank you.
So second is thanks to Jeff for setting up this imaging idea. It's been great. For the past couple of months now we've been doing this, and all of our sessions are on our CAST YouTube channel for anybody who wants to see the prior sessions. So thanks, Jeff, for that. Thanks for the CAST and Novak participants. We had 14 people participating during this, and I think that's about where we've been before. So that's a good number for a Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock when you could be watching college basketball,
Mm-hmm.
And look forward to next month's Marshall Faintish's presentation next month. It's April 19th at 3 p.m. on Zoom. If you go to the CAST webpage, go to the calendar, and you'll be able to click right on there to get to that session. It'll take you right to the Zoom site. And then finally, Steve, for you, you showed that beautiful aurora picture up in the Shenandoah early on, and I love the aurora pictures. I will tell you that Dimitro did a fantastic aurora video up there also for 2024. I think Dimitro, you have to clear it up here, but I think it was like 6 hour time lapse collapsed down to about what was it, about 10 minutes with music, and it was probably the most awe-inspiring video I've seen on that. So any other thoughts on
Cool.
that, Dimitro?
It's not as professionally done as your work, so I'm very amateur when it comes to that. But we were lucky with the display there in October, so yeah, it was a good opportunity, and I was kind of amazed, yeah, to capture that.
Where were you?
In Shenandoah, on one of the first overlooks that's closer here to Charlottesville.
Oh, okay. On the
I
south
forget
end.
the name,
Yeah.
so yep. it was amazing. Yep.
Yeah. The good news of where we live down here is, at least where I am in Crozet, it's pretty darn close to both the entry to Blue Ridge Parkway as well as the south entrance of Shenandoah National Park. There's no lack of really good locations. So we have asynchronously here in the chat organized a field trip to Woodridge Farm Brewery, which is one of our primary viewing sites for the club down here. And as you were speaking, I was in Planet Pro looking at that, and July 11th is both new moon and perfect Milky Way center to the south from Woodridge Farm Brewery. So we have a field trip ready to go.
Cool.
Okay.
And we'll be studying your slides before then, so we know what the heck we're doing.
There you
Well, let me
go.
know the deets, and maybe I can join you.
Yeah,
That would
yeah,
be great.
sure. We'll probably get it on the calendar at some point.
All right.
All right.
Unless there's anything else. Last
All right.
call.
Thank you very
Great.
much.
Awesome.
Thanks so
Thank you.
much. Appreciate
Very
it,
good
Steve.
stuff. Thanks.